Welcome to Web3 Demystified, where we discuss anything you might want to know about Web3 and beyond. This is Vivi Lin, a big advocate for Web3. I know that many of you, when thinking about Web3 or crypto, might have concerns about cybersecurity, as you keep hearing all these horrible stories about scams and hacking in the space. So how does cybersecurity work in Web3? And how do we protect ourselves? Well, today we have the perfect guest for you. I could say that he's one of the most knowledgeable persons in the world who knows about cybercrime. A former US most wanted cybercriminal, hacker, and original Internet Godfather, he's now a cybersecurity expert who protects people from cybercrime. Now let's welcome the one and only Brett Johnson. Hi, Brett.
Hey,
so nice having you with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It is a true pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I know that you're super early, and thank you for taking the interview in such early hours. So Brett, I just go straight with the question. You started the Shadowcrew back in 2002, which was considered the forerunner of today's cybercrime forums and marketplaces. Now that we're entering the era of Web3, how has cybercrime evolved?
Well, I mean, it's definitely went through an evolutionary process. When I was committing crime, and I started this whole financial cybercrime type thing that we see today. But when I was committing crime, a cybercriminal needed to really understand every single aspect of cybercrime as a whole. These days, cybercrime has evolved to the point where the platform itself, well, it's a platform. You have cybercrime as a service. A beginning criminal doesn't have to understand any single dynamic of the crime. He can buy a tutorial for $5 to $10. He can take live instruction classes. He can rely on the members of his criminal community to help guide him through how to commit a specific type of crime. All of the tools are provided on the marketplaces. They're off-the-shelf tools and products and services. So these days, cybercrime itself is extremely easy to commit, and the numbers of cybercriminals have exploded through the roof over the years. Absolutely. It's become a much easier thing for criminals to be engaged in.
So you're saying that it's much difficult to tackle the issue while there's so many, like the crime has become so organized and so professionally done, and then they have the professional training and services for those criminals. So how do we do about that?
Well, I mean,
I know it's a big question.
That's a huge question. It really is. I mean, what do you do about it? And people need to understand that the numbers of criminals out there, when I say they've exploded, they've exploded. When I was committing crime, my website, Shadowcrew, ended with 4,000 members. Fast forward to 2017, the largest criminal group was called Alpha Bay. It ends with 240,000 members. 2 more years later, 2019, Black Market ends with 1.15 million criminal members. All of that is pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, it really exploded in the numbers of membership. So you're talking about single communities and websites that are millions of members large. We can no longer arrest our way out of the problem. So it takes security, but more than that, it takes trust, because for a criminal to victimize either you or your organization, they have to establish trust with that potential victim. So it really boils down to an issue of trust. We need to be able to have a trust mechanism on the internet that we can rely on that tells us who we are dealing with and what transactions are real and which ones are not.
That's interesting. You brought up this concept of trust. Now we know that with the advent of blockchain and crypto, people talk a lot about this trust mechanism or trustless. Whereas you don't need to trust each other, but you can trust the mechanism, right? So the smart contract and code is law and consensus. So how do you think blockchain and crypto will change the landscape of cybercrime or cybersecurity?
Well, I think the blockchain itself is a trust mechanism. We can trust that blockchain. You take the Bitcoin blockchain, it is immutable. We know the transactions are there. We know they cannot be changed. We trust that blockchain. If you can apply that to security, if you can apply that to our everyday lives outside of just cryptocurrency, then you're doing a lot of good for our overall online lives. Think NFTs, for example. NFTs right now, the technology is outstanding, but it's a very new technology. So what we're seeing is we're basically seeing a lot of ape pictures, JPEGs, being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're seeing a lot of laundering going on with NFTs, but the technology itself is outstanding. Now, if you can apply identity to the blockchain, maybe using NFT technology or something like that, what you're doing is you're solving a lot of the cybercrime issues that are online, because financial cybercrime always involves an element of identity theft. So if we can to secure identity online using the blockchain, then we solve a lot of the problems with our online lives. We really become more secure. So my hope is that we really solve a lot of the problems that we have right now when Web.3 is really implemented and developed.
You know, interestingly, I think almost all of us have experiences of have the exposure of phishing websites, or like myself when I was buying NFTs, and I almost got also like scammed when I click on a phishing website. They look exactly the same, except they change certain letters, right? Like you said, sometimes they replace some Russian letter with the English one. So it's very easy to fool you. So I would like to ask you, when cracking down those cyber crimes, do you which way is more useful, like the government kind of top-down methods or grassroots? We need to kind of protect ourselves with all the tools in hand.
You know, that becomes an issue. In the United States, security is based on profit. So if a company is not profiting, they're not going to provide a security tool, which is unfortunate because they're losing that game. They truly are. So you mentioned top down. Do we rely on government-based regulation? Well, I don't know about you over there, but here in the United States, our political officials really don't understand a thing about the internet or Web.3 or crypto tech or the blockchain or anything else. So can we really trust those individuals to regulate that if they don't even understand it? And that, I think that's one of the things that we're seeing with Web.3 or 3.0. We're seeing security or trust that is established, that regulation that's established by the community at large. They determine, they understand, they know exactly what needs to be done within that environment so that we can be secure, so that we can be safe. That is the importance of all of this. It's really understanding your online environment. You're having that situational awareness, which is established by using a blockchain, which is a trust mechanism. It really promises to solve a lot of the problems that we have out there without being interfered with governments that really don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, makes sense, because the technology is so new. A lot of the people need to catch up, the government, obviously, and also organizations and everything. But on the grassroots level, for example, like the companies that you work with who hire you as consultants, they do a better job than the government. I think government are kind of one step behind probably in this regard. And you also mentioned before that 90% of exploits online are actually not technically sophisticated, right. But mostly social engineering has a lot to do with human nature. So how do we protect ourselves when we're in such environments?
Well, the problem is that we as humans are fallible. That's why cybercrime succeeds. You mentioned before, and I quote this all the time, 90% of every single attack uses known exploits. Known exploits. It's not zero-day attacks. It's not the stuff we don't know about. It's the stuff we do know about that causes this threat landscape that's out there. And the threat landscape is so big that it's difficult to plug every single vulnerability that's there. At the same time, the biggest vulnerability is the human. You know, why would I spend years trying to fight my way past an industrial-proof firewall if the only thing I need to do is send an email to someone sitting behind that firewall? I get the exact same access. It saves time, effort, and money on the criminal side of things. So you always look to compromise the human. There are things that individuals can do to make their lives safer. You know, you have to have situational awareness, understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum, design security around how a criminal will attack you and what that criminal is looking for. Look at your credit profiles. How is your credit based? try to freeze the credit report. In the United States here, we can freeze our credit report. So freeze your credit report. Monitor your existing accounts, because every single account that you have has value to a criminal. So monitor those accounts, place alerts on those accounts. Password managers. And again, this is all Web 2.0.
Yeah.
When we move over to 3.0, we have a really dynamic shift in the way things operate online. Think of it from a criminal point of view. The criminals have always been open source. They have always shared and exchanged information freely, because they have understood that by educating everyone across the board, every criminal becomes more profitable in the end. Web 3.0 really kind of levels the playing field with the good guys and the bad guys, because of the trust mechanism, because of that blockchain basis that's there. Because of that, we can become more secure. We can identify the bad actors more readily. We know things like fake news. You know, I made a presentation a few years ago about the perception of truth being more important than the truth itself. So you can identify what is fake news, what is misinformation, and what is not, and you can get away from it as quickly as you possibly can. We're not able to do that right now. So Web 3.0 really solves a lot of these issues and problems. I would say that a lot of the times, if you're a human being trying to remain secure just as a human being without any access to these proper tools, that you're going to fail. So 3.0 really delivers a lot of tools that we need to live lives safely online.
That's good to hear. So are you more optimistic actually for cybersecurity in Web3 because of the trust mechanism, because of all the tools out there that were not actually available in Web2?
I am very optimistic. And the reason why is because human beings are not very good about doing what they need to do to remain secure. So in the United States, credit freezes have been free since 2018. Only 12% of the population has a credit freeze in place. 80% of every single person on the planet uses the same password and login across multiple websites. We as human beings are not very good about using the tools we need to remain secure. Web 3.0 promises to kind of deliver that for us. So it's already going to be built within the infrastructure of the internet. And that really changes things, so that instead of relying on people to do what they should do, it's already delivered for them, and it's already a secure process from the get-go.
Interesting. So from the cyber criminals perspective, you talk about the 3 steps for them to gather information, commit a crime, and cash it out. So in the era of Web3, do you think it's easier, or is it more difficult for them to do that?
I think that it really depends. So we tend, as human beings, we tend to trust the technology which is given to us. We don't really understand it a lot of the time, but we tend to trust it. And that becomes a problem, because criminals use a variety of tools to manipulate that technology. So Web 3.0 is certainly going to be more secure. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's going to deliver a lot of safety to our online lives. But if criminals can get you to engage outside of that, which is what happens every single day with these cryptocurrency scams and NFT scams that go on, if they can get you to engage outside of the safety and security of what's there, then they can compromise you. And I think that's what we're going to see, is more and more of these social engineering types of scams and techniques that are used to victimize individuals and companies.
Interesting. Now, we also look at the motivations of cyber criminals, which you have talked a lot. I think that's very interesting. You said that some are motivated by cash or social status, and actually those are easier to deal with. But there are some who are motivated by ideology. They truly believe that they are changing the world by doing this, by committing the crime. So how do we deal with the latter?
So if you think about it, there are 3 reasons that you commit crime online: status, cash, ideology. When I talk about status, what I mean is can you do something that no one else within your criminal community can do? Can you build and deploy ransomware? Can you build bot networks? Can you deploy that? Can you use stolen credit card details to defraud companies like Amazon and Apple when no one else can do that? If you can, you gain this status or the respect of every single person within that community. And some of these communities are millions of members large. That respect equates to profit at the end of the day. So that's status. Ideology. Do you have a different political opinion than someone else? Have you angered someone's mindset? If you have, then you might be attacked. We see that every single day. In the United States, we've seen that for the past 2 years on both the left and the right wing sides of the fence. You see that every single day. PayPal, for example, they stopped taking donations for WikiLeaks at one point. They were hit with over $30 million in DDoS attack damages. So you can be attacked from that. And then finally, cash. Most attacks these days are still cash-based. But the problem with that, a cash-based attack, is always lowest hanging fruit. The criminal looks for the easiest access that provides the largest return on his investment. Status and ideology are different. Status, it doesn't matter about your security. A criminal wants you to have big security because if he can get past that, he impresses his criminal peers. Ideology doesn't matter who you are. They will never stop. It is always a persistent, consistent type of attack. Understand why you're being attacked, and you'll understand who those attackers are a lot of the time, and how consistent or how persistent that attack will be. Are they going to stop? Are they going to go away? You've basically got about 7 different types of attackers. You've got the criminals, you've got nation states, hacktivists, terrorists, you've got insiders that are out there, you've got the script kiddies, and then the hackers for hire that are there. And each one of those you can kind of peg with a different type of motivation for why they're committing crime. Understand why they're committing crime. You can often identify who the attacker is and also know what you need to do in order to secure yourself.
Interesting. So I think on a bigger scales, those cyber criminals are actually out there who are attacking elections, for example, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Could you just give us a bigger picture about the cyber criminal activities out there?
Sure. So I've got to state, I did a TED Talk a few years ago, and I made the point that the perception of truth is more important than the truth itself. It doesn't matter what the facts are. It matters what someone can be convinced of. So think elections, think the war. I don't care if it's either Russia or the Ukraine. Think about how people's perception can be manipulated or changed in order to drive those individuals toward a specific goal. Think deep fake videos, releasing a video saying, hey, we're declaring war, or hey, we're selling off all our stock of our companies. Or if you're law enforcement, a video is released of a police shooting where they're shooting an unarmed man. And it turns out to be a deep fake video where the weapon has been removed from that criminal's hand. Well, that news is already out there. The people have already reacted to the fake news that's there. But once the real video is released that, hey, the individual was armed, it doesn't matter. The damage has already been done. So that's one of the things, you talk a lot about Web 3.0. If you can establish real news from, or differentiate real news from misinformation using a blockchain technology, you solve a lot of those problems that are out there. You solve a lot of the propaganda that's out there, the misinformation, the fake news, all these, the election manipulation that goes on. You solve a lot of those issues. It becomes very, very important, and it really affects everything. So, business email compromise in the United States, that's a problem that is $7 million a day. It's a $12 billion industry. Blockchain technology can solve that by making sure that the people that you interact with, those emails, are legitimate emails, that the domains you're going to are legitimate domains. Same thing with ransomware. You can establish that the programs that you're downloading on your system are not infected with malware. So that 3.0 really solves or promises to solve a lot of those issues. And, I'm very hopeful. You ask if I was optimistic. I am optimistic. I always have been. I remain hopeful that we will get to the point where we are able to live safe, trusting lives online. I truly am. But we just need to keep working toward it. And it takes all of us together as a group to do that. And it takes tools like what 3.0 is going to deliver in order to do that as well.
Yeah, I totally believe that too. I think what you're doing, also your day-to-day job, and the fact that you are speaking to us about cybersecurity, about all these tools that are available, and those are all working in progress towards that goal. And I also think that fake news is really a big problem to identify the source of information, right? So if we could put everything on the blockchain, obviously we are simplifying things here, but that's the idea,
Right.
so that we can verify all the resources and makes it more difficult to create fake news.
I honestly think that we have good times ahead of us. I really do. I mean, right now the world seems to be going through a bad phase,
Mhm.
but I really am hopeful and optimistic that good times are ahead of us. I have to be. I mean, you can't live your life just thinking that things are going to continue to get worse. I don't think that at all. I think that we are going to continue to get better as a people, that we are going to become safer as a people, and that things are going to be okay in the end.
Yeah, definitely. As human beings, we are progressing all the time. I would like to talk a little bit about your own experience. You have an amazing story to turn your life around from cybercriminal, most wanted US cybercriminal, to a cybersecurity expert. What is it like in the journey, and what does it take for you to make that shift?
Sure. What is it like? It's very, very difficult. Truly, I spent decades as a criminal. I started committing crime when I was 10 years old. 10 years old as a child, in order to feed me and my sister, because my mom was a criminal and she used to abandon us at home all the time. And as I got older, I got more and more involved in those criminal activities that my mother and that side of the family committed. So I grew up with that criminal mindset, and it was very difficult to turn that around. I was given opportunity upon opportunity. And finally, what happened was, it was a combination of my sister, my wife, Michelle, and then finally the FBI really gave me the opportunity to use the knowledge that I had acquired as a lifetime criminal to do good instead of cause harm. And I chose to take that path. And that path was not an easy path. No one trusts. We talk about trust a lot.
Yep.
No one trusts the individual who steals all of your information. And I was that individual. So it's taken years. It's taken years to establish that trust with the good guys, with law enforcement, with cybersecurity industries. It's taken years to do that, but I'm getting there. I was recently named Chief Criminal Officer with Arcos Labs. I work with law enforcement across the planet. I speak with the largest companies. I'm an ambassador with AARP. I work hard every single day to protect businesses and individuals from the type of person that I used to be. And when I say I work, my job is exactly like it was. Well, not exactly. When I was a criminal, I didn't stop. I worked around the clock. And as a good guy now, I don't stop. I work around the clock. It's not an 8-hour job day. My family, my wife, my friends will tell you, I am constantly working to help people to talk about security, to get word out, and try to do the best that I can to help and not hurt. I can't make amends for those actions that I did in the past. I can't. You can never make amends for that. But I can make sure that my actions and my choices today and tomorrow are healthy, good choices that seek to help people and not harm people.
So what motivated you? We talk a lot about motivation. So what is your biggest motivation right now?
My biggest motivation is not to be remembered as the guy who stole everything, but to be remembered as the guy who turned everything around. That's my biggest motivation. It took me years to really understand that the reason that I fully believe, people always question why we're here on earth. And I really believe it's for two reasons. The first is to know ourselves. Who are we? Why do we act like we are? Who are we as an individual? And the second is to help each other, not to hurt each other. And it took me years to get to that point. Years. I was in my late 40s before I came to that conclusion. But I finally got there. And that's my motivation today, is to make sure that I'm helping people and not hurting people. That's the key, I think, to everything at the end of the day. I don't care what your ideological beliefs are. I don't care what your religious beliefs are, your political beliefs. As long as you work to help each other and not hurt each other, I think we're on the right path at that point.
Interesting. And you mentioned that there's a series of people who helped you in this journey to make that shift. Is that a moment that you remember that kind of is like a life deciding moment? Is that an aha moment that you would like to share with us?
Sure, it is. I mean, it's the only reason I'm able to do what I do today is because of people helping me. That's the only reason. If I didn't have that, if I didn't have that outside assistance, I would be back in prison for 20 years. The real defining moment, there's actually, I mean, there's several. It's my wife, me understanding that she didn't need me for what I could give her. She just needed me for me. It's Keith Malarski of the FBI. I sent him a message saying, hey, I would like to be a legal individual. And the man responded within 2 hours. He responded to a criminal within 2 hours, took me in under his wing, gave me references, gave me advice. It's those things that they stand out. And I reflect on them every single day, how fortunate I was to have the assistance of people who I could never repay that reached out to help me and give me the opportunity that I've got today. So yeah, I mean, it really is an aha moment. It truly is.
Yeah, beautiful story. What is an ideal world for you?
An ideal world for me is one, and I don't think that we ever really get there, but I think that an ideal world is one where we can trust each other, where we don't have to worry about our children being victimized or our companies going out of business because they've been hit with an attack. Where we can be private, where we understand the value of our privacy. That's one of the things that Web 3.0 also promises, is that degree of privacy. We own our data. But I think it's just living safely and helping each other and just getting along together. I mean, we as human beings, we like to fight, we like to argue, but I think that if we can just learn to get along, which is kind of a trite answer, but if we can just learn to get along, we'll be all right.
Just out of curiosity, and what do you think of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general?
In general, so Bitcoin's not going anywhere. Bitcoin is the granddaddy of them all. It's not going anywhere. I think that cryptocurrency overall is not going anywhere either. I mean, we're even seeing people like Warren Buffett that are finally kind of getting on board. He still publicly says that it's a horrible thing, but some of the banks that he owns a major share in are dealing in cryptocurrency. So even he's getting on board with these ideas of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin started out as a criminal mechanism to launder money. Period. That's what happened. The person who adopted it first really was Ross Ulbricht when he started up Silk Road. He gave it its first real use case. But over years, what happened is it became more and more mainstream. So now you've got institutional investors. You've got 16% of the United States population that owns some form of cryptocurrency. It's becoming more and more mainstream every single day. It's not going anywhere at all. Do I think that cryptocurrency promises to change the world? Not really. But I do think that the technology promises to change the world. And that's the big difference in it all.
Bitcoin has become one of the top 10 global currency reserves. And Absolutely. If you look at the market value, also Wall Street already embraced it, and a lot of VCs in Silicon Valley also. So yeah, I think you're right. It's not going anywhere. But obviously, as a crypto and Web3 advocate myself, I'm very optimistic about cryptocurrencies and Web3. But definitely, like, we can agree on at least the underlying technology,
Absolutely. Blockchain. We're going through a bloodbath right now in cryptocurrencies. But that's really I think that's a good thing, because let's be honest, a lot of those tokens out there are pretty worthless. So it will get rid of the ones that really don't need to be in the field to begin with. And as we consolidate, things become more trusting, and those tokens that stay alive have value. They have a use, and it becomes a good thing at the end of the day. For investors, it's just figuring out which tokens are going to live through it. And that becomes an important thing. That's why I say all the time, do your research.
Yeah, definitely. And just like the internet in the early days, right? So there are lots of those companies that are going to die, but and then the infrastructure, the technology, and then the winners are going to stay. But and then obviously you need to know who are the winners. So do your research and just keep up with the trend and everything.
Absolutely. And just like with the internet in the early days, when the bubble bursts, you have a different group of people that come in and a lot more wealth is established at that point in time. Cryptocurrency is not going anywhere at all. Certainly, do your research and find some tokens that are worth investing in.
We've seen a lot of very idealistic people when they talk about Web3, and they have this perfect image of like a utopian almost. But then we look at the reality, is not really the case, right? So from Web2 to Web3, the whole spectrum, where are you standing?
The idealists that are out there, the ones that are painting the pictures of what Web 3.0 is going to be, it's not going to look anything like what they're saying, anything at all. There's that idea, and then there's the actual implementation of it. Now, what that actual implementation looks like, I don't have a clue. I don't, but I do firmly believe that it will make us more secure and more safe overall. Hopefully it solves a lot of the problems that we've got. I think that it will. But I honestly don't know what Web 3.0 is going to look like. And I don't think anyone does. It's one of these processes where as you build it, it becomes, and you become more clear on what these purposes are and what these things will actually look like and how they'll operate. But right now, I don't think a lot of people understand it.
I totally agree. If I would like to ask you to give our viewers a takeaway on how to protect themselves from cyber criminals in Web3, what would the takeaway be?
My takeaway would be understand that the weakness is the individual, always the individual. It's how I can manipulate you into giving up information, access, data, or cash. So understand that you are the weakness. If you understand that, then you'll tend to rely more on the security tools that are out there. Understand your place in the cybercrime spectrum, how a criminal will attack you. Design your security around that. When a cybersecurity professional or someone in the media tells you that, hey, you need to do this to remain more secure, do it. Like I said before, credit freezes in the United States, only 12% of the population have them in place. It's a great security tool that not very many people use. It's important that we take the advice of security professionals that are out there that are trying to get people to be safe online. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much. And also you have a daily podcast.
I do.
To educate people about it. Yeah, tell us about it, your podcast and your other plans.
Sure. So I have the Brett Johnson Show. It's on YouTube. We're at 27 episodes right now. We release 2 episodes a week. We talk about cybercrime, cybersecurity issues. We also talk about, some personal stuff, things about how I turned my life around, some of the techniques, not techniques, but some of the troubles that I've had. I'm very open and honest about that. And the idea is to give people the information they need about cybersecurity and cybercrime, but also let people know that the journey of turning one's life around is never an easy thing. It always comes with troubles, but it's always worth it at the end of the day. So please tune in to the Brett Johnson Show on YouTube. I would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brett. I'm sure our viewers will tune in, and including myself. I love your show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It has been super inspiring. Thank you, Brett.
Outstanding. Thank you again.
Thank you for watching today's episode. If you like what you see, please click the like button, subscribe, and show us your support. See you next time.